Peace. Peace, y'all. This is Empress Coach Trina Nicole, and this is the AM Inspiration Show. So wake that ass up. Yes, period. It is Saturday, October the 22nd, 2022. And today the topic is how grief shows up in your physical vessel, aka your physical body. Now, with that being said, I'm gonna remind y'all that we are streaming live on all networks. Yes, honey, I said all networks. With that being said, I'm gonna let y'all chill back for a few more seconds with this nice flow, and then we're gonna hop right into the topic. Peace, y'all. Yes, peace, y'all. This is your host, Empress Coach Rena Nicole, and this is the one, the only AM Inspiration Show to wake that ass up, often imitated, never duplicated, period, with original and authentic content that you will not catch everywhere. Basically, because this AM Inspiration Show to wake that ass up wakes you up consciously, spiritually, emotionally, physically, financially, and soulfully. With that being said, let's get to it. Yes, this topic today definitely hits home for me. We're going to speak on how grief physically affects your body. Because literally, if you ever lost someone or experienced a feeling of grief, it's an intense feeling of sadness or sorrow, and it's generally brought on by the loss of something or someone, right? It can include an ending of a long-term relationship, like a divorce, or the expiration of a family member that may cause these symptoms, okay? So grief is not always thought of as a full body experience, right? Um, but only as something that can affect your mental health. Okay, that's the way a lot of people look at it. Like it only shows up in mental health. Okay, and it also has physical aspects to it because the physical symptoms may not come up with every kind of grief. Okay, it may not. Everyone grieves differently. That's the really complex part about grief. Everyone actually does it differently. Everyone experiences grief differently. Okay, so keep that in mind while we're going on today, that like, oh, I never experienced that, because everyone experiences grief differently. That is never ever going to look the same for one or two people. You know what I'm saying? It's never going to look the same. That's not how grief shows up. It never shows up the same. It never looks the same. um just being transparent here. And it definitely for like intense grief, okay, it can be caused by the expiration of, like, your family member, or intimate partner relationship, which is also your family as well, and can bring about side effects that may feel more physical than anything else. You know what I'm saying? And literally it can trigger a lot of different mental health symptoms and issues. And those issues may include depression, different levels of depression, um, loneliness, and like anxiety, different levels of anxiety. Okay, and the that slippery slope between the grief period and mental health issues may be hard to define, okay? And it definitely can assist you when you consult a medical professional if you are experiencing grief in this manner, because if you're having trouble with grief or some similar feelings to the things we just discussed, just want to throw that out there before we actually dive deep in. Um, Now, also, I want to throw out there that today we're going to talk about things that may help you cope and maneuver through. I am not telling you what to do with your like medical advice or anything of that nature, because I'm not your doctor. Now, if you want to use this podcast as a way for tools and skill sets to cope and maneuver through to be your best version of your best self, that's the intention of everything we're talking about today. So I had to throw out that disclaimer. Period. Okay. Dun, dun, dun. Now, I'm super excited to be here. Y'all know I love um doing these topics and having these conversations, because they're extremely important, because a lot of things people don't discuss, and they don't have the range to discuss them or the knowledge to deliver it in a way that's conducive for someone else's growth. And that's the point of having these conversations, right? So other people can grow and elevate and identify. You know, when we're not able to put ourselves in a position of identifying triggers of our grief, or just triggers, period, we place ourselves in the position of not being fully able to receive healing. We're not able to do so. We're not able to receive healing. We're not able to actually heal fully, or even address and process. Healing is a part of processing. Um, so that's one of the major important things about showing up in a way where it's like, you know what? I'm showing up here because I want to be able to identify my triggers, and I want to be able to heal my pain, heal my grief, or just able to cope through it. Because some things you just never ever heal. Coping mechanisms is the best thing for you to actually, it's basically an investment in yourself. So keep that in mind. Okay. Give me 1 second, guys. All right. So I had to send someone a link to the podcast. Now, with that being said, um, let's get into these symptoms of grief, okay? Um, One thing you can talk about is the heart problems, right? Heart problems can be brought on by intense stress in a variety of situations, right? But there are particular heart risks associated with grief, okay? And literally, one study found that the expiration of a loved one can increase a person's chance of a heart attack. There's also specific temporary syndromes brought on by the expiration of a loved one, um, called Takotsubo cardiomyopathy. Okay, and it's literally called broken heart syndrome. I don't know if you ever heard of that. Okay, broken heart syndrome literally is caused by the disruption in the blood being pumped into one section of the heart, and because of this, it mimics the effect of a heart attack, chest pains, and shortness of breath. Yet it's temporary, because people with broken heart syndrome can undergo treatment for it. They may also choose to wait for the syndrome to reverse itself in a few weeks. Okay. Now, it's extremely imperative to note that if you experience chest pains or shortness of breath over a long period of time, you should consult your doctor for deeper causes. You know, this is true for any other severe or long lasting physical effects of grief. Okay. And you're going to hear me say that a lot, to contact a doctor, because, like I said, I'm not your medical doctor. We're here to give coping tools and different things like that. But today we're identifying how grief shows up in the body, prolonged grief. You know what I'm saying? So the next one is lowered immunity. Child, honey, listen. Listen. Oh, man, okay? Because a lot of people can catch colds, okay? It can come down to you being like catching colds, okay? The flu, during times of intense stress, okay? So I've noticed that like I don't get sick a lot, but or yet if I feel like my stress level and I'm not able to manage it and it just slip past me, I find myself like sick. Like, okay, I think I got the flu. Boom, I got the flu. I may have never went anywhere and touched anything. Even though I'm a raw vegan and my immunity level is high, when you're stressed, no matter how healthy you eat, it brings your immunity down. Okay? So exposes you to illness. Okay? When you are not well, it exposes you to disease, point blank, period. There's no spin on that. There's no justification for that. That's just how it is. Okay, baby? Now, you're more susceptible to a lot of elements during a period of intense grieving because in adults, grief definitely can lower the immune system. Okay. There's been so many studies um, on adults experiencing grief, especially due to the loss of a significant loved one, um, and they could not maintain their stress or hormone balances. Okay. And literally, the result is that they experience reduced um, neutrophil function. What is neutrophil, Empress? It literally is that during the grieving process, older adults are likely to produce some types of, white blood cells, you know, leaving them prone to infections. Okay. They're less likely to produce them. I had to say that again because I sometimes I talk too fast and I want to make sure that you guys are hearing me, right? Um, like I said, I'm not an older adult, but I just know like adults, period. Even sometimes children, like if you know, like they'll experience pain, like, oh, my stomach hurt. Say for instance, like if you got divorced or like they haven't seen their other parent or any kind of stress in their life, like grief or loss, they're like, oh, my stomach hurt or my head hurts, and it may show up in their physical body because the way that they're processing their grief is through their physical body, right? Okay. Um, Another one, definitely I can relate to as well is the body aches and the pains, okay? Because aches and pains are extremely common physical symptoms of grief, okay? Grief definitely can show up in your back, joints, headaches, and stiffness, okay? And this pain is caused by overwhelming amounts of stress hormones being released during the grieving process, okay? It literally is effectively, it stuns the muscles they contact, okay? Stress hormones act on the body in a similar way to broken heart syndromes. Okay, the aches and pains from grief should be temporary. If they persist over a long period of time, consult your physician. Okay, because something else may be going on. You may have triggered something else. Consult your physician. All right. Um, the next one, of course, is the digestive issues. I literally just broke that up, right? So it's like every time I bring something up, I'm going to always go deeper into it. I'm just preparing you, just preparing you, just preparing you. Period. Dun, dun, dun. Now, the digestive tract can be extremely sensitive to times of intense stress. Okay, it can be all too common to seek comfort in food during stressful periods or experiencing a queasy stomach when anxious, okay? Because grief definitely shows up as symptoms and others such as lost appetite, binge eating, nausea, and irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, aka, all right? Literally identifying these symptoms are caused by grief can help alleviate them, all right? Because when you're feeling an urge to eat, when you're feeling low vibrational, or notice you haven't eaten all day because of the same low vibration, it's a good indicator to call a trusted friend or a licensed mental health professional to make an appointment so you can get your life back on track. So you're back to feeling healthy, eating healthy, and just living healthy. Okay? Period. Listen, so we're gonna get even more deeper into it because literally it can show up as unhealthy coping mechanism, okay? Now, overeating and not eating enough during the grieving process is only one of the unhealthy coping mechanisms that many people actually live through, okay? Some can be more harmful than others. A lot of people can turn to like alcohol, cigarettes, and they literally overuse them because they literally, you know what they do, right? They have effects on your liver and your lungs. Okay. Others, trigger warning, can engage in self harming behavior like drug use or other high risk behaviors. Okay. Any coping mechanism, um, that we just mentioned can have intensely damaging, long lasting effects on your physical vessel, including your brain. So if you find yourself, unfortunately, frequently engaging in behaviors like those to cope with grief, it is extremely imperative you reach out to a licensed professional for help. Okay. So one of the main ones that we see show up in society, and they literally had a study in 2017. It found that the study was done on spouses, okay, who were bereaved by trigger warning by people taking their own existence, and they had a higher risk of developing sleep issues, okay, because sleep is to be when the body and the brain rest and repair themselves. So sleep disruption during grief can be especially frustrating, and it literally can be debilitating, because you constantly feel like both sad, anxious, and exhausted all at one. Insomnia is a common occurrence in those who are grieving, okay? And it shows up only, it's literally supposed to be temporary. Insomnia is not supposed to be prolonged, all right? Because literally a continual inability to sleep regularly or feel rested should be reported to your doctor because the effects of that can be life changing. Insomnia can destroy your life. Unfortunately, it can. It has the possibility to do that, because as humans, we need that rest and restoration every single night. Or if you want to take your sleep during the day, if you can, then every single day. But we definitely need to get sleep and rest. Okay. Now, literally, when grief becomes a cycle, like when you keep on cycling, right? That's crazy. It's like it sounds crazy, don't it? Because many people aspire to finish grieving and move on with their lives in a healthy way. But a lot of people find that it's harder than expected. It's possible for grief to become a cycle, right? When it just keep on happening and happening and happening over and over. Um, because sometimes the thoughts of the memories, that we have of whatever we have lost, whether it's a person, you know, um, or a thing that we're attached to, a situation, it can light up. It can just light up, right? The reward receptors in the brain. And that means like moving on or letting go can be more difficult, okay? Because those memories and that process of grief can feed into an addictive feeling, right? So a cycle can take a lot from you. It can take a toll on you physically and mentally, right? Because literally getting through the grieving process for a long period of time means that a person's risk for long-term health problems have just increased. Okay, it literally just increased. We're not saying that, oh, you should be grieving next day. No, that's not what we're saying. We're saying that sometimes it can be like a short-term symptom like chest pain, stomach ache, sleep problems, and it can manifest into more serious things. It can include things like heart disease, eating disorders, or chronic fatigue. Unfortunately, that's the slippery slope that it can go down. Okay, so keep that in mind, because literally, grief literally just shows up. Okay, and it just really it can affect your moods, right? It can trigger powerful emotions, which includes anger, anxiety, helplessness, hopelessness, and sadness. Because moods have a direct physical outcome on your, like your your vessel. Depression and anxiety can cause fatigue and social withdrawal and result in spending less time on activities you enjoy. That can lead to weight changes, insomnia, hygiene, chronic pain, amongst other things. Okay, so even when if you have a diagnosed mental health condition already, it's even more important to keep the following up with your treatments while you're grieving. Okay, it's important to speak on the feelings that you have so you can receive or understand how to cope with what's going on. So if you're just keeping it to yourself and you're like, oh, I can get through this, and it's like a long period of time, and you're not expressing what's going on, you put yourself at risk for disease, for it to get worse. Um, and that's a dangerous place to be. Whether you're on meds, off meds. But if you already have like a diagnosed mental health condition and you're seeing someone and you're not expressing help, you're not expressing yourself, you're not expressing what's going on with you, you're putting yourself in danger. And that's for people who are prolonged grieving as well, and not seeing a therapist or anyone, or not telling anyone what's going on. You're also putting yourself in a lot of danger and at risk. So it's okay to speak up and speak out, use your voice. Not saying you have to tell everyone, but it's okay to tell someone, especially a medical professional that can actually, put you in a position to help you. Um, Now let's talk about some things that you can use for help. If you're experiencing like chronic grief and you notice that your life has changed and you just don't know what to do anymore. I'm going to give you some information right now, because literally you can call 911, your local emergency services number. Trigger warning, you can call the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline at 988. You can text the word HOME, which is home, to the crisis text line at 741-741. If you're not in the United States, you can literally use Befrienders Worldwide to find out all that information to use if you're not in the United States, right? So keep that in mind, okay? So literally, when you're managing your grief, it's important to seek help to regulate your mind, body, and your spiritual connections, right? Because what gets thrown out of whack during the grieving process can get you back on track. Exactly. You know what I'm saying? It can definitely, help you get better. You just have to be open to helping yourself, because you can seek out as much help as you want to, but if you're not willing to put in that work to help yourself, you're never going to, because listen, the grief of losing someone or a situation, I'm not saying it goes away. I'm saying that with time, you cope and it doesn't hurt as bad and it's not affecting you the way it was affecting you before. You know what I'm saying? That's what we're saying, right? Because building that healthy routine can be a first step to mitigating some of the physical symptoms of grief. Like regular exercise and nutritious diets definitely can assist you with your pain, your heart rate, your digestive issues, and your sleep patterns. Talking about grief with family and friends that you can trust, or a licensed mental health professional or medical professional can help you address grief directly. Okay, when you do those things, they also foster the development of healthy coping skills. Because when you can trust people and they've been through some stuff, they're going to give you some tips. And everything may not work for you, but you take what you can and you throw the rest of that shit out. Period. And you try something. You try it if it's healthy and it's not putting you at risk, like it's not some drugs or something like that. It's not putting you at risk and it's not no risky behavior. Then you try that if it can work for you. And it's something healthy and sustainable that's going to propel you into living your best life and taking you through these moments of grief. Because sometimes people don't experience like, oh, I think about grief every single day. No, it come like a flash, like a flashbang, and it just knocked them off their ass, you know. And it's like repetitively doing that to them. And that's a dangerous place to be because you're not regulating your grief. You're not in control. You're not having coping skills where you can maneuver through and exist without this chronic grief just continuously showing up and not, living your best life anymore. Okay? So just remember that the best thing you can remember today is that you are not alone. Every human on this realm, no matter what they say, has experienced grief. A lot of people are not sure how to grieve, how to process grief, how to maneuver through it, you know, how to regulate, how to balance themselves. Same thing as regulation. I just want to use I like to use different words for different things. um, and asking for help may seem like, oh, I'm just being a burden because you're listening to them thoughts that don't matter, telling you that you're being a burden because you're asking for help or you're sharing. Stop listening to those thoughts because those thoughts are keeping you sick. You're not burdening anyone. It takes time. It's a process, not going to happen overnight, and it's definitely normal. Grief cannot be rushed. No matter what these unhealthy, toxic positivity people say, oh, just be happy. Oh, just think of something happy. Listen, if people around you like that while you're grieving, you need to remove yourself from them because they're not really healthy people to be around. Because for some reason they feel like they can invalidate your pain, um, or compare what someone else been through to what you're going through, and that's just not a healthy place to have yourself in. you know um Stop being around people that don't recognize what you're going through and allow you. They want to take away the way you show up. They want to take that away from you and invalidate it to validate something else that makes no sense and doesn't matter, period. Okay. Love and compassion and empathy. Compassion is empathy, but whatever word you want to use. So literally from your family, and the help of a medical professional, whether it's mental or a physical medical professional, that it will definitely help you to minimize the symptoms of grief and cope with grief. And sometimes even relieve the symptoms of grief, period, and help you move past the grief and move on with your life. um, because one of the five stages of grief is acceptance. So with that being said, keep that in mind. Now, I think this was really a great show. I'm glad y'all came out to support. I'm grateful for you being here. Hey, hey, hey. I love it, YouTube. I love it, love it, love it. Okay, I don't love it. Someone is being a dingbat and they're spamming. Yeah, I had to put them in timeout. We're not doing that. Who is that? Oh, hey, Miss Rosa. Hi. Can you hear me? I'm trying to hear you. Let's see.
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Just calling to check on you and listen
You
to
in
your
the,
show. And huh?
I was saying you was in the matrix a little bit. Let me turn it down. So how what you say?
I said, you know me, I'm always checking in on you to make sure you're all right because I like my daughter.
Yes. So what you I know you're a nurse, so what you think about the show today? What's your feedback? Anything you want to add to it to help other people, maneuver through
Uh-uh,
grief?
everything you said was on point. I know I'm a nurse. I do allopathic medicine, but I actually practice in my personal life. I practice holistic. So everything that you said, I agree with, especially the grief part.
Thank you so much. It's so so important to and thank you for being here as well. I'm so grateful. Looking good there. It's so important to definitely have coping skills because like a lot of people don't even realize like like to use myself for example, I didn't realize that I was grieving that long. You get what I'm saying? I didn't realize I was even grieving. I didn't realize I was even stressed and it almost took me out of here. You know what I'm saying? It was a devastating loss for my family and like excuse me, We're still like since 2019, it just seemed like it just kept happening. Like stuff kept happening in my family, and I realized that if I didn't accept things, I would just literally expire. Like if I didn't start accepting stuff that happened in my life, I would expire and finding coping mechanisms to maneuver through. And that just happened this year. Since 2019, it just happened this year, this summer, that I was able to actually cope and maneuver through and accept what happened. The things that happened to me, and that's a great place to be in. I don't see you anymore, but I don't know where she went. But I'm glad. Oh, there you go.
Can you see? Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you better and I can see you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'm just happy you're here. Yeah, I'm so happy you're here. But yeah, with that, I learned to accept. That's one of my things with grief. I was not accepting because I wasn't dealing with it. And most people think they accept it because they show up to the funeral or they talk about things. Like I wasn't doing none of that. Unless somebody asks me a question, I don't talk about stuff. I don't really try to process through stuff. But it took me almost 3 years to do that. And that's why I said topics like this are important because a lot of the time people think, oh, you're just trauma bonding. No, when you share things, you're sharing a story of resiliency. My shares are always
Right.
about resiliency. It's not about connecting to someone else's trauma because I'm aware that all humans have trauma and I have no interest in connecting to other people's trauma. I have interest in sharing my story so people can be aware that they're not alone. They can elevate, they can grow from that as long as they like go through these stages that's uncomfortable. So what you think about that?
I mean, you hit every point. I mean, I really can't add anything to it. I've been through grief, and even the process or the time is different for everyone. It was about a couple years before I actually acknowledged that I was in grief, because a lot of times you're on autopilot and you think that you're just doing things to just get through, and then you realize you haven't dealt with the issue. So yes, of course, as a nurse, we know the 5 stages of grief, but those stages are not in any particular order. They're in different order for different people. I was in denial for a long time, and I eventually got to acceptance, but you know, it was a long time in between a lot of those periods. So, you know, I agree with you.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just said I agree with you.
Yeah, you're definitely on point with that. A lot of people think they have this misconception. You brought up something that's extremely imperative. That they have this misconception, right? That the 5 stages of grief go in certain order, and they only experience it for like a week or two. Like, no, no,
No,
because you
no,
can go from accepting and stuff like that, and like a month later, you cannot accept it. You could be back where
right.
you started, and that's when I say that's prolonged grief, and that's why most of us need therapy because we go through prolonged grief because we think we move through them stages, and we're just sitting down one day, and then everything is just in chaos. It's in a
Well, I honestly, I'm trying to set my phone down. I honestly think that therapy is needed for everyone, no matter if you're grieving or not. Many of us, I mean, have some type of issue that needs to be dealt with. No human is perfect. Um, Even the people who come from the most ideal of circumstances will have issues. So it's nothing wrong with going to therapy. It's nothing wrong with reaching out. Um, what is problematic is not identifying or denying that you have issues that need to be dealt with. That's where the problems come in. And that's why a lot of people ending up spiraling out of control.
definitely, definitely. We've been having this conversation a lot during the podcast and actually during Clubhouse. I've been hanging around different types of rooms, different types of people that are more elevating and conducive to my growth, and we've been having a conversation about how to like identifying your triggers. Literally, like people say they're healers and they're healing, but you could never heal until you identify the big triggers in your life, because it's always going to be something that triggers you as a human. But when you identify the big triggers, it helps you to literally be able to live and not always be on that reactionary mode. Not always be in a space of, oh, this is someone that's trying to, hurt me intentionally or affect me intentionally, and you realize like, hey, I'm just triggered, and now I know how to deal with that. I know how to breathe through it. I know how to go paint. I know how to step away. I know how to step aside and realize that it's just me and how I deal with certain situations. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you saying that, because that's so relevant in life, period. Just point blank, period.
Yep. 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 And like, like I said, people can have the most ideal circumstances. Like my youngest daughter, you know, she's uh hasn't known any kind of struggle, strife. None of my children really, but I'm using her as an example. And she goes to therapy. She hasn't had anything that I personally would deem as traumatic or anything. And I was just speaking with a coworker about this. I was just speaking to a coworker about this issue, how as a parent, because my children are in different age groups. They're 17, 22, 28, and 32. So there's a 15-year gap between my youngest and my oldest. So whereas my older two, even my older three, I should say, I have three girls, they'll say something like, oh, you let her get away with anything. You didn't let us do this. You didn't let us do that. First of all, I'm an older parent now. I'm 53. Um, and so I'm older. I'm not in my 20s and 30s like I was with them. And so as time wears on, you become more patient. And then you have to understand, and I really want to say this to a lot of the parents out there. We really have to be cognizant that our children are living in a different time than we are. If you're my age, between your 30s and 50s, our children are experiencing life differently.
You're in the
The
matrix,
pressures of social media,
Miss Rosa. I don't know if you can hear me, but all I got was your children are experiencing life differently. So whenever you want to chime back in, just chime back in when you get your signal together, because I can see you frozen on my screen. You're frozen. So literally, that's just so Miss Rosa just showed up. She's so powerful. She's such a powerful woman, and I'm so grateful that she's here, and she's sharing. So we're just gonna wait a few more set minutes and see if she can come back in and her signal can get fixed and she can finish what she was saying to us, because we definitely want to receive that AM soaking. Period. Um, but yeah, the grieving process is nothing. It's not scripted. It's definitely not scripted. It can show up in parts of your body, like with anger, like your kidneys, your liver, and different things like that. It releases types of chemicals into your body, and inflammation happens, and it definitely makes you open to disease. I see you coming back in now. I see your signal starting to fix itself. But definitely you have to be more aware of your body. Like if you're not connected to your body, it's going to be hard for you to definitely be self-aware of things that can be going on with your physically. You may like, oh, I'm just tired. Oh, there you go. Let me bring you back in. There you are.
I don't know what happened, but like I was saying, just as a parent, just realize that our children are facing issues that we didn't have to judge them. And you know like I
Hmm.
said, even in under the most ideal
It It keeps freezing, but I get what you're saying. There you are. There you are. And it keeps
You
me.
know I live in these mountains, girl, so on these hills.
Yeah, I didn't get anything you were saying. It just literally cut you out. So I think you were talking about how your daughter had the most ideal positions, and that your other
Yeah,
children didn't understand.
yeah, all of my children grew up in a good, you know, environment, circumstance, what I would consider good. But the point is, um, she's 17, my oldest is 32, so they might say things to me like my other three daughters will say, "Oh, you let her do this, you let her do that." And I just have to let them know that each of them are individuals and I treat each child accordingly. And I really want people to know that their children are individuals. They have their own set of problems or concerns or worries, and we need to treat them that way. And just listen to your children, just listen to them. If they, are feeling a certain way, let them know that their feelings are valid, and move forward, do whatever it is you can do as a parent to let that child know that they're safe and that they can talk to you, and that if they need to go to therapy, that's also an option. Because I know my daughter talks to her therapist about things that she probably wouldn't discuss with me, and that's okay. But as long as she has somebody to talk to, that's the important thing.
Period. Period. I definitely agree with that. I'm definitely on board with you there. Same thing for my children. I feel like everybody in the whole world needs therapy. So I definitely agree with you there. I'm so glad you shared that. I don't, I didn't need for it took for something to happen with my daughter to make me realize, you know what? They don't tell you everything. Children don't tell you everything. No matter how close I thought we weren't that close because she wasn't sharing the intimate details. When she trigger warning, when she tried to, take her own life. At such a young age, where she didn't even understand what that meant. She was just so emotionally unregulated at that time, from a TBI, like a traumatic brain injury, that that's how she thought would be the best way to cope. And I'm glad, like you said, that I recognized that in her because she wasn't aware of herself of what was going on to get her the help that she needed. So thank you so much, Ms. Rosa, for always showing up. No matter where you show up in my life, it's always in a transparent way. But I'm so glad you showed up today where other people can actually, experience and
Oh, you know I love you, girl. You like my fifth daughter, and
I
then
love
my grandkids. Um, what I do want to say is, I don't know, because I've been away from I'm away from social media a lot.
you.
Have you ever did a show for especially children? Because uh,
All I
morning.
heard was, "Have you ever did a show?"
I was just gonna say, suicide is very pervasive in our community, especially with our young. So, have you ever did a show about that?
No, trigger warning. No, I haven't. No, I haven't went there because whew, that's a topic that is not easy for me to talk about. I'm not sure if I'm ready, prepared to talk about that in a full scope like we have done, previously on Clubhouse together. Um, Not sure if I'm ready for that for my podcast. Maybe in the future, if I had more people on, like more hosts or guests to come in with, more facts and stuff like that, because I feel like that would put me in a place of emotions. I don't like to be in that place. So I have not, because I don't feel like I'm ready for that yet. If that makes any sense. She tapped.
That makes that makes sense. I get it. I get it. Whenever you want to do that, let me know, because I have experience with that as well.
Whenever
So,
you're ready, I
you
just
know,
can't. That's not a stage I'm willing to do by myself. If that makes any sense, I'm not willing to do
no,
that stage.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
I would be willing to talk about it because it's an important subject.
definitely. It is definitely important. So definitely we'll talk offline. So I'm gonna wrap
Yeah.
up. We over time, but I was like, I definitely didn't care
Okay.
at this point. I definitely didn't care at this point. But I'm so grateful that you're here and thank you for coming on. And hopefully I get to, we get some more visits from you. You get to come in some more and show up and chime in because I'm extremely grateful. So thank you so much, Miss Rosa. With that being said, this is Empress Coach Rena Nicole of RenaNicole.com, Divine Intervention Show and Podcast. And this was your AM Inspiration Show to wake that ass up, streaming live on all networks. With that being said, we will catch you tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 days a week, 365. Peace, y'all.